Welcome to English Lane. In this video, we will explore the complete life story of William Shakespeare, the greatest playwright and poet in English literature. Let us begin with his early life and family background. William Shakespeare was born in the year 1564 in the small market town of Stratford-upon-Avon in Warwickshire, England. His exact birth date is not known, but historians believe he was born on April 23rd, which is also the date of his death later in life. Shakespeare was the third child of John Shakespeare and Mary Arden. His father, John, was a successful glove maker and also served in local government positions such as alderman and bailiff. His mother, Mary, came from a respected farming family. This combination of business and rural tradition gave young William both stability and exposure to the wider community. As a child, William likely attended the King's New School in Stratford, where he received a classical education. Students in such schools were trained in Latin grammar, literature, and rhetoric. He would have studied works by ancient writers like Ovid, Seneca, and Cicero, which later influenced his plays and poetry. Though there is no direct record of his education, the richness of his language and references in his works prove his strong literary foundation.
Growing up in Stratford, young Shakespeare was surrounded by the countryside, the River Avon, and the lively market town atmosphere. This environment helped him observe different kinds of people and behaviors, which later shaped the realistic characters in his plays. However, Shakespeare's family life was not always easy. His father, John, faced financial difficulties in the late 1570s, which affected the family's social standing. Despite these struggles, William's curiosity, intelligence, and imagination grew strong during his youth. In summary, Shakespeare's childhood combined rural English culture, classical education, and exposure to both prosperity and hardship. These early experiences built the foundation for the genius who would later be known as the Bard of Avon.
Chapter 2. Marriage and Children. As we move forward in the life of William Shakespeare, let us now look at his marriage and family life. In 1582, when William Shakespeare was just 18 years old, he married Anne Hathaway, a woman from a nearby village called Shottery, close to Stratford-upon-Avon. Anne was 8 years older than William. Their marriage was considered unusual at the time because of the significant age difference, but it turned into one of the most important relationships in his life. Just a few months after their marriage, Anne gave birth to their first child, a daughter named Susanna, in May 1583. 2 years later, in 1585, the couple had twins, a boy named Hamnet and a girl named Judith. With 3 children at a very young age, Shakespeare became a father responsible for supporting a growing family. Unfortunately, tragedy struck the family when Hamnet, Shakespeare's only son, died in 1596 at the age of 11. This was a devastating loss for William, and many scholars believe that the themes of grief, loss, and the fragility of life in his plays, such as Hamlet, were influenced by this personal tragedy.
Shakespeare's marriage with Anne Hathaway has long been a subject of discussion among historians. Some believe that the age gap and his long stays in London created distance between them. Others argue that Anne was a strong and supportive figure who cared for their household while William pursued his career in the city. Regardless of speculation, Anne remained his wife throughout his life, and they are even buried next to each other at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford. This chapter of Shakespeare's life shows us the balance he had to maintain between personal responsibilities and his ambitions. The joy of fatherhood, the sorrow of losing a child, and the enduring bond with Anne Hathaway deeply shaped his emotional world, which later found its way into his writings.
Chapter 3: The Lost Years, 1585 to 1592. After the birth of his twins, William Shakespeare suddenly disappears from the public record. From 1585 to 1592, we have almost no clear information about where he was or what he was doing. Historians call this mysterious time the Lost Years. This period has always fascinated scholars and biographers. How did a young man from a small town, the son of a glovemaker, transform into the greatest playwright in English history? Let us explore the possible answers. Some theories suggest that Shakespeare may have worked as a schoolteacher in the countryside. His knowledge of classical literature, Latin, and Roman authors could have been strengthened by teaching children. Others believe he may have been employed as a law clerk, since many of his plays show a deep understanding of legal terms and courtroom language.
Another popular theory is that Shakespeare traveled with theatrical groups or acting companies. This would explain how he became so familiar with the stage, costumes, and the life of actors. Some even suggest that he might have joined a traveling troupe of players and gained first-hand experience of performance. There are also legends that Shakespeare may have spent some of this time in London, observing the city's theaters, or perhaps working as an assistant in drama productions. London, during those years, was alive with music, plays, and cultural energy. It was the perfect place for a young writer to learn and grow. No matter what the truth is, one thing is certain: these lost years were not wasted. When Shakespeare reappears in historical records in 1592, he emerges as a rising playwright in London, already skilled, confident, and ambitious. These hidden years must have been a time of learning, struggle, and discovery that shaped his creative genius. The mystery of the lost years gives Shakespeare's life an almost legendary aura. It reminds us that even when history is silent, great minds may be preparing for their moment of brilliance.
Chapter 4: Early Career in London. By the year 1592, William Shakespeare had begun to make his mark in London. This was the first time he appeared in historical records as a playwright. London, during the late 16th century, was a bustling city, full of trade, culture, and entertainment. Theater was one of the most popular forms of amusement, and Shakespeare quickly became part of this vibrant world. In 1592, a pamphlet written by a playwright named Robert Greene criticized Shakespeare, calling him an upstart crow. Greene was a university-educated writer who looked down on Shakespeare for being from a humble background with no formal higher education. But ironically, this insult is the first proof we have of Shakespeare's growing reputation in London. The fact that Greene felt threatened shows that Shakespeare was already gaining attention as a talented dramatist. Around this time, Shakespeare began writing plays that attracted audiences with their energy and creativity. His earliest works included the 3 parts of Henry VI, which dramatized the Wars of the Roses, a series of civil wars in England. These plays showed his gift for history, dialogue, and action, and they brought him into the spotlight of the London theater scene. The theaters of London were lively places. People from all classes, nobles, merchants, and even ordinary workers, came to watch plays. Theaters such as the Theatre, the Curtain, and later the Globe provided a stage where Shakespeare's imagination could come to life.
But Shakespeare was not only writing plays. Between 1592 and 1594, London faced outbreaks of the plague, which forced theaters to close.
During this time, Shakespeare turned to poetry. He published two narrative poems, Venus and Adonis and The Rape of Lucrece, which earned him the patronage of a nobleman, the Earl of Southampton. These poems brought him financial stability and literary recognition. By the mid-1590s, Shakespeare was not only known as a poet, but also as a rising playwright. His plays began to combine elements of history, comedy, and tragedy in new ways that captured the imagination of the audience. His reputation was steadily growing, and he was preparing to write works that would make him immortal. In summary, the early career of Shakespeare in London was marked by ambition, struggle, and creativity. From criticism to recognition, from history plays to poetry, he laid the foundation for his future as the greatest dramatist of all time.
Chapter 5. Rise of Shakespeare as a Playwright. By the mid-1590s, William Shakespeare's career was beginning to shine brightly. He was no longer just an ambitious newcomer. He was becoming one of the most celebrated playwrights in London. His plays were drawing large audiences, and his reputation was spreading quickly. One of the first plays that brought him real fame was Romeo and Juliet, written around 1595. This timeless tragedy of two young lovers from feuding families captured the hearts of audiences. Its mixture of romance, passion, and tragedy showed Shakespeare's gift for creating powerful emotions on stage. Even today, Romeo and Juliet remains one of the most performed and adapted plays in the world. At the same time, Shakespeare displayed his skill in comedy. Plays like A Midsummer Night's Dream and The Comedy of Errors filled theaters with laughter, fantasy, and wit. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, Shakespeare blended love stories with magical elements, creating a world of fairies, dreams, and imagination. Audiences were amazed by his ability to mix humor, romance, and fantasy in such a brilliant way.
Shakespeare also continued to explore English history in his plays. Works like Richard III and Henry IV showed his talent for portraying kings, battles, and politics. But these were not just historical lessons. Shakespeare made history come alive with human emotions, ambitions, and conflicts. He gave his characters depth, making them unforgettable. By this time, Shakespeare was writing for an acting company known as the Lord Chamberlain's Men. This group of actors became closely tied to him throughout his career. His plays were performed before large audiences, including Queen Elizabeth I herself. Winning the admiration of the Queen was a remarkable achievement and gave Shakespeare both prestige and protection in a competitive theatrical world. What made Shakespeare stand out from other writers was his unique ability to combine poetry with drama. His words were beautiful, but they were also deeply human. He understood love, jealousy, ambition, humor, and sorrow, and he gave these emotions to his characters in ways that touched the hearts of everyone, from nobles to ordinary workers. By the late 1590s, Shakespeare had firmly established himself as the leading playwright of his time. With tragedies, comedies, and histories, he showed that he could master every genre. His rise as a playwright was complete, and the stage was set for him to reach even greater heights in the years to come.
Chapter 6. The Globe Theatre. By the end of the 1990s, William Shakespeare had already become a successful playwright. But the true turning point of his career came with the creation of a theater that would forever be linked to his name, the Globe Theatre. In 1599, Shakespeare, along with his playing company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men, became part owner of the Globe. This was not just a stage. It was a place where his imagination would find its perfect home. The Globe Theatre was built on the south bank of the River Thames in London. It was a large, open-air, circular structure with 3 levels of seating surrounding a central stage. The roof covered the seating areas, but the stage itself was open to the sky. In the center yard, called the Pit,
Ordinary people, known as groundlings, could watch the play by paying just a penny. The wealthier audience members sat in the galleries above, and the nobility enjoyed the performances from the best seats. This theater was a reflection of Elizabethan society itself. People from all classes gathered together, united by the power of drama. At the Globe, Shakespeare's words were not just read, but they were experienced. Audiences laughed, cried, and marveled as his characters came alive before their eyes.
Shakespeare wrote many of his most famous plays specifically for the Globe. Tragedies like Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth were performed here. Comedies such as Twelfth Night and As You Like It delighted audiences, while histories like Henry V inspired national pride. The Globe became the beating heart of his creativity. The design of the Globe also encouraged interaction between the actors and the audience. With no stage lighting or elaborate scenery, the power of the performance relied on Shakespeare's words and the actors' delivery. The closeness of the stage to the audience created a bond that made the plays even more powerful. The Globe was not without its challenges. In 1613, during a performance of Henry VIII, a cannon shot used for special effects set the thatched roof on fire. Within minutes, the theater was completely destroyed. Yet the dedication to drama was so strong that the Globe was rebuilt the very next year, proving the resilience of Shakespeare's world. For Shakespeare, the Globe was more than a building. It was a symbol of his success, a stage where his genius reached its peak, and a legacy that continues even today. A modern reconstruction of the Globe stands in London now, attracting visitors from all over the world, reminding us of the timeless magic of Shakespeare's theater.
Chapter 7. The Great Tragedies. By the early 1600s, William Shakespeare had already achieved fame as a playwright. But it was during this period that he reached the height of his creative power. He began to write a series of plays that are today known as his great tragedies. These works are considered masterpieces of world literature, exploring the deepest emotions and darkest struggles of human life. Let us look at 4 of his most celebrated tragedies: Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. Hamlet, written around 1600 to 1601, tells the story of Prince Hamlet of Denmark, who seeks to avenge the murder of his father by his uncle, King Claudius. The play is filled with themes of revenge, madness, betrayal, and the meaning of life itself. Perhaps the most famous line in English literature, "To be or not to be, that is the question," comes from this play. Hamlet's struggles reflect universal human doubts, questions about death, morality, and the purpose of existence. This play remains one of the most performed tragedies in the world.
Othello. Around 1604, Shakespeare wrote Othello, the story of a Moorish general in the Venetian army. Othello is noble and brave, but he becomes the victim of jealousy and manipulation. His trusted officer, Iago, deceives him into believing that his wife, Desdemona, has been unfaithful. The play explores the destructive power of jealousy, racism, and betrayal. Othello's downfall shows how even the strongest of men can be broken by doubt and mistrust.
King Lear, written around 1605 to 1606, King Lear is a powerful story of pride, family conflict, and madness. Lear, an aging king, decides to divide his kingdom among his 3 daughters. But he makes a terrible mistake by rewarding flattery and rejecting true loyalty. The result is a tragedy filled with betrayal, cruelty, and suffering. King Lear examines the fragility of human relationships and the consequences of arrogance. It is often seen as Shakespeare's darkest and most painful play.
Macbeth. In 1606, Shakespeare created Macbeth, a tragedy of ambition and guilt. Macbeth, a Scottish nobleman, is encouraged by a prophecy and by his wife, Lady Macbeth, to murder King Duncan and seize the throne. But once he becomes king, Macbeth is consumed by paranoia and violence, leading to his downfall. The play shows how unchecked ambition can destroy both individuals and nations. Famous lines such as "Out, damned spot," captured the haunting guilt that follows Macbeth and his wife. The power of the tragedies. What makes these tragedies so great is not just their dramatic plots, but their insight into the human soul. Shakespeare revealed the inner struggles of ambition, jealousy, pride, and despair with unmatched depth. His characters are not distant heroes. They are real, flawed, and deeply human. These plays ensured that Shakespeare would not just be remembered as a playwright of his time, but as a timeless voice who understood human nature better than anyone else.
While William Shakespeare is best known for his plays, he was also a remarkable poet. His contributions to English poetry, especially through his sonnets, have left an indelible mark on world literature. Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets, first published in 1609. These short poems explore themes of love, beauty, time, mortality, and the power of art. Each sonnet follows a strict structure of 14 lines, often with a rhyme scheme of AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, GG. Yet within this structure, Shakespeare's language is rich, expressive, and deeply human. Many of the sonnets are addressed to a young man, praising his beauty and urging him to preserve it. Others are written for a mysterious, dark lady, exploring love, desire, jealousy, and betrayal. Through these poems, Shakespeare captures emotions that remain universal even today. Two of his most famous sonnets are Sonnet 18, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" In this sonnet, Shakespeare celebrates the eternal beauty of his subject, claiming that poetry can preserve it forever. Sonnet 116, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments." This sonnet explores the steadfast nature of true love, emphasizing that love is unchanging and enduring, even in the face of challenges. Shakespeare's poetry is not only about love. Many sonnets reflect on time and mortality, contemplating the fleeting nature of life and the inevitability of death. Yet he also celebrates the enduring power of art itself, how writing can make human emotions eternal. Apart from sonnets, Shakespeare wrote longer narrative poems, including Venus and Adonis and The Rape of Lucrece, which he published in the 1590s. These works helped establish his literary reputation and demonstrated his skill in storytelling through verse. The combination of poetry and drama in Shakespeare's works made him unique. His understanding of human emotions, the beauty of language, and the ability to express complex feelings in few words distinguish his poetry as timeless. In summary, Shakespeare's sonnets and poems reveal a different side of his genius. While his plays brought characters to life on stage, his poetry gave readers a window into the deepest thoughts and feelings of the human heart. Chapter 9. Later Works and Collaborations.
As William Shakespeare entered the later years of his career, his writing evolved. He began experimenting with new forms, themes, and genres, producing plays that are often referred to as his later works. During this period, Shakespeare wrote several plays that combined elements of tragedy and comedy, creating a new style sometimes called romances. These plays include The Tempest, Cymbeline, The Winter's Tale, and Pericles. The Tempest is considered one of Shakespeare's greatest masterpieces. Written around 1610-1611, it tells the story of Prospero, a magician and the rightful Duke of Milan, who is stranded on an island with his daughter, Miranda. The play explores themes of forgiveness, reconciliation, and the magic of imagination. Cymbeline blends history, romance, and tragedy, featuring complex plots with misunderstandings, family secrets, and eventual reunions. The Winter's Tale is another late romance, famous for its transformation from tragedy to comedy. The story emphasizes redemption and the power of time to heal wounds.
In addition to his own plays, Shakespeare collaborated with other playwrights. Some plays, such as Henry VIII and The Two Noble Kinsmen, show evidence of joint authorship. Collaboration was common in Elizabethan theater, and working with other writers allowed Shakespeare to explore different ideas and styles. The later works show a mature Shakespeare who had already mastered tragedy, comedy, and history. His writing became more philosophical and reflective, focusing on forgiveness, human growth, and the passage of time. He experimented with complex characters, intricate plots, and poetic language, enriching his plays with depth and nuance. Even in these later years, Shakespeare's connection with the stage remained strong. His works continued to be performed by the King's Men, the company that succeeded the Lord Chamberlain Men after the accession of King James I. The company performed for both the public and the royal court, keeping Shakespeare's reputation at its peak. In conclusion, Shakespeare's later works and collaborations reveal a playwright who never stopped innovating. He explored new forms, combined genres, and deepened the emotional and philosophical layers of his stories, leaving a legacy that would influence generations of writers and artists across the world.
Chapter 10. Personal Life and Final Years. As William Shakespeare approached the final years of his life, he gradually returned to Stratford-upon-Avon, the town where he was born. By the early 1610s, after decades of success in London, Shakespeare chose to spend more time at home with his family. During this period, he focused on investments and property. Shakespeare had become financially successful, owning several houses and land in Stratford. One of his most famous properties was New Place, a large and elegant house he purchased in 1597. These investments gave him stability and comfort in his later years. Despite his retirement from regular playwriting, Shakespeare remained connected to the theater. His company, the King's Men, continued performing his plays, and he likely contributed to revisions and new works occasionally. Shakespeare's personal life in these years was marked by a mixture of peace and sorrow. He was still married to Anne Hathaway, though much of his adult life had been spent apart due to his work in London. He remained close to his daughter Susanna and her husband, Dr. John Hall. Sadly, he had already lost his only son, Hamnet, years earlier, a tragedy that had deeply affected him.
William Shakespeare passed away on April 23, 1616, in Stratford-upon-Avon. He was 52 years old. His burial took place at Holy Trinity Church, where his grave still stands today. The tomb bears an epitaph believed to have been written by Shakespeare himself, warning against disturbing his remains. Shakespeare left a will that distributed his property among his family, leaving the bulk to his eldest daughter, Susanna. Anne Hathaway received the second-best bed, a detail that has intrigued scholars for centuries. Some interpret it as a sentimental gesture, others as a legal formality. Though his personal life had its challenges, Shakespeare's final years were a time of recognition and respect. He had achieved immortality through his works, and his influence was already spreading beyond England. Friends, fellow writers, and audiences honored his genius, and he continued to be celebrated long after his passing. In essence, Shakespeare's final years remind us that behind the legendary playwright was a human being, a father, a husband, a property owner, and a man who had experienced both joy and sorrow. These experiences shaped his works, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire the world.
Chapter 11: Legacy and Influence. William Shakespeare passed away in 1616, but his works continued to live beyond time and place. He is often called the Bard of Avon, and for good reason. His influence on literature, theater, and language is unmatched. Shakespeare transformed the English language. He invented new words and phrases that are still used today, such as break the ice, heart of gold, and wild goose chase. His poetry and plays enriched English vocabulary and expressions, shaping how we speak and write. In literature, his works became models for storytelling. Writers around the world studied his plays to learn about character development, plot structure, and the power of dialogue. His influence can be seen in novels, plays, and films centuries later. Theater owes much to Shakespeare as well. He helped establish drama as a major form of entertainment in London, blending tragedy, comedy, history, and romance in ways that captivated audiences. The Globe Theatre, both in his time and in its modern reconstruction, remains a symbol of his enduring impact.
Shakespeare's exploration of human nature is timeless. His characters, from Hamlet to Lady Macbeth, from Othello to King Lear, reflect emotions and struggles that are universal. People continue to study, perform, and adapt his works because they speak to the essence of life, love, ambition, and morality. Even today, in classrooms, theaters, and cinemas worldwide, Shakespeare's plays and poems remain relevant. His legacy transcends geography and culture, making him not just an English literary giant, but a global cultural icon. Conclusion and final call. William Shakespeare's life is a journey of talent, ambition, creativity, and humanity. From his early years in Stratford-upon-Avon to the bustling theaters of London, from his sonnets to his great tragedies, he left a mark on the world that is truly eternal. He was more than a playwright. He was a visionary who understood the human heart, a poet who captured the beauty of words, and a storyteller whose characters continue to live in our imagination. Thank you for watching this complete biography of William Shakespeare here on English Lane. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to English Lane for more amazing stories and detailed biographies. Your support helps us bring more incredible content to you.